Chosen one, you've entered a rare atmosphere of influence, an invisible field where words are not the first thing women notice about you, nor your clothes, nor your smile, nor even your form. What they register first is a shift, a pull in the space, a change in the rhythm of their breath, something so subtle it can't be captured by the five senses, yet so undeniable that their body tenses in awareness before their mind can ask why. And that why, that sacred, unnameable force, is your high sexual energy, unspoken, disciplined, alive. You no longer need to perform or signal who you are. You've become a living field of quiet charge. You walk in silence, yet your presence speaks like thunder muffled behind velvet. There's a calmness in you now, unapologetic and complete, that women don't just sense, they respond to. Not out of lust, not out of fear, but out of a mysterious gravitational impulse that whispers, he's here. It's not confidence they feel first. It's not charm. It's not dominance. It's frequency. You've stopped pushing your essence outward. You've stopped spilling it into conversation, gesture, or pretense. You've anchored it inside your breath, and now it radiates through your being like heat through stone, not demanding attention but shaping the room quietly around you. When you move, there's no urgency. When you speak, there's no strain. Because you are no longer rushing toward anyone's validation, you've become rooted in your own electricity. That electricity hums. It doesn't plead or persuade, it doesn't beg to be acknowledged, but it touches the feminine at a level she can't rationalize. Her body feels it before her eyes adjust to you, before her thoughts try to categorize you. Before she knows what she feels, she already feels. And that feeling unsettles her, not in fear, but in remembrance. Because what you're carrying now is not surface appeal. It's soul pressure, something primal, something ancient, something that says, I've come home to myself and you are safe to do the same. She cannot name it. She cannot explain it. But her body listens. It listens to the quiet in your movements, to the weight in your breath, to the strength you no longer advertise, to the peace that follows you like shadow. And in that peace, a forgotten part of her awakens. Not because you tried, but because you transmitted wholeness without speaking a word. That is why your energy moves before thought now. Because thought can be doubted, but frequency is felt as truth. Chosen one, in a world flooded with appearances, performances, and constant impressions, you've stepped out of the noise. You're no longer etched into memory by the sharpness of your jawline or the rhythm of your voice. You're remembered for something deeper, something haunting, something women carry with them hours, days, weeks after crossing your path. Not because you did anything dramatic, but because your frequency lingered in the air like a scent they couldn't name. She sees hundreds of faces a day, listens to dozens of voices. Most blur together, most are forgotten. But yours returns in quiet moments, in the space between distractions, in the silence before sleep. And she doesn't know why. She'll say, there's something about him. Not something she can point to, not something she can explain to her friends, just something. That something is your frequency. And frequency cannot be faked. It cannot be staged. It must be earned. You've earned yours by burning through what wasn't real. You've suffered through your own illusions, battled your ego, faced your cravings, and come back to yourself without apology. And now what radiates from you isn't volume, it's truth. A steady, measured frequency of a man who no longer seeks attention, but commands remembrance. She remembers you, not because you impressed her, but because your presence asked nothing of her. You didn't chase, you didn't charm, you didn't shapeshift to be chosen. You remained, and that remaining is what stays in her mind. You stayed exactly as you are in a world where everyone is adjusting, calculating, aiming to be liked. Your energy did not bend, it resonated. That resonance moved past her eyes, past her ears, and into the part of her that doesn't speak in words. Into her intuition, into her breath, into her spine. And even if she never speaks to you again, something in her will remember the way you held yourself, the silence in your confidence, the gravity in your calm. Because it wasn't your looks, it wasn't your words, it wasn't your image. It was the way your frequency made her feel herself more clearly. And when a woman feels more herself around you than she does alone, she doesn't forget, she doesn't explain, she simply returns, whether in thought, in memory, or in motion. Because she's not trying to remember your name. She's trying to remember the part of her that only woke up in your energy. That's the difference now. You're not the man who gets attention. You're the man who becomes a quiet echo inside her body long after you've walked away. Chosen one, something sacred happens now when you enter a space. The air doesn't change because of what you wear or how you walk. It shifts because your presence carries a vibration that doesn't wait for permission to be felt. You're no longer asking to be understood. You're no longer explaining who you are. And because of that, intuition begins to stir before language can catch up. A woman's logical mind might hesitate. She might tell herself you're nothing out of the ordinary, but her body disagrees. Her awareness sharpens. Her sense of time softens. There is no obvious reason for her to feel this drawn to you, but she does. There's no visual checklist that explains the weight in her chest or the way she suddenly can't hear the rest of the room. Something deeper is listening, and it is listening to your frequency, not your face. You're no longer the man who tries to be read. You are now the man who is sensed. You don't perform. You don't project. You don't announce your energy through gesture or tone. You simply exist in full resonance with yourself, and that resonance sends ripples through the unseen realm. Her intuition doesn't need to know your past or your intention. It doesn't wait for proof or presentation. It feels the truth of who you are without filter. And that kind of knowing is ancient. Your high sexual energy, now refined into alignment, moves like a language beyond thought. It says, I am not here to chase. I am not here to seduce. I am not here to impress. I am simply here, anchored, disciplined, alive. And when a woman feels that message, she may try to explain it away. But her inner knowing has already recorded it. Her nervous system already trusts you before her mind can even ask why. This is what happens when you stop trying to manipulate your environment. When you stop shrinking, adjusting, over-explaining, seeking approval. Your mere presence becomes a signal that cuts through surface impressions. It moves straight into the unseen, into the place where instinct overrides image, where knowing overrides logic. She doesn't understand why she turns to look, why her breath changes, why her eyes soften, why she feels safe without a word. But that's the point. Your energy was never meant to be understood by the mind. It was meant to be recognized by the soul. You've become a man who doesn't convince, because the truth you radiate is no longer up for debate. And when the feminine senses truth, she surrenders her hesitation before her thoughts ever catch up. Chosen one, you've stepped into that rare and powerful space where invisibility becomes unforgettable. Not because you vanish, not because you hide, but because what you offer cannot be held in the hand. You leave no trail of words, no badge of effort, no tangible signature. And yet, your presence marks people in a way they struggle to explain. You've become a felt experience, not a memory. A moment, not a message. A mystery, not a conclusion. You don't push for attention, and because of that, you are remembered without proof. You don't chase impressions, you become impression. You don't seek to leave a trace, they simply find themselves carrying your frequency long after you're gone. And this is no accident. This is the effect of a man who no longer leaks energy trying to be chosen, but instead builds energy within and lets it speak for him. Your high sexual energy used to be performative, loud, visible. You used to reach for recognition with your gestures, your tone, your eyes, but now it moves differently. It doesn't seek contact. It settles into the space around you like fragrance, something gentle, something ancient, something that lingers without clinging. A woman will leave your presence, only to find that you did not leave her entirely. Not in words, not in touch, but in vibration. And that vibration is now your true signature. She won't be able to tell her friends exactly what made you different. She'll reach for descriptions. There was something about him. But the words will fail, because you weren't witnessed, you were felt, and feelings do not obey the mind's rules. They only obey resonance. You carry stillness now. Not silence, but stillness. Not vacancy, but presence. Not disinterest, but non-attachment. And that stillness has become your gravity. You don't leave a message behind. You leave permission for her to trust her own softness, for her to be seen without defense, for her to choose without explanation. She may try to brush it off, say you were just being nice, just another moment, but her nervous system knows better. Her breath will shift again when she thinks of you. And it won't be lust. It will be something far more haunting. The memory of being held energetically without being touched. That is what you are now. Not a man who is pursued. Not a man who persuades. But a man whose absence feels like something she was just beginning to understand before it vanished again. You are no longer a moment in her day. You are a mark in her spirit. And that mark, chosen one, that soft, sacred, untraceable mark, is what she cannot explain, but cannot forget. Chosen one, the most powerful force, is never the loudest. It does not crash through the door or burn with flashy brilliance. The most powerful force is the one that moves underneath the noise, beneath the surface, behind the eyes, below the skin. You have become that force, not through dominance, not through performance, but through the sacred art of self-containment. You've mastered the ability to radiate without flashing, to command without demanding, and to be felt without being loud. You don't step into a room trying to take it over, and yet it shifts when you arrive. Not because you seek the center, but because your very presence reorganizes the atmosphere. Women may not turn their heads immediately, they may not giggle or glance or whisper, but something inside them stirs, a ripple in the nervous system, a quiet pulse, a sense that something important just entered the space, and they don't yet know why they're paying attention. But they are. They're not reacting to your appearance, they're responding to your field. You carry a high sexual energy that no longer leaks through flashy gestures. It lives in your posture, in your breath, in your silence. It doesn't need volume because it carries weight. You no longer seek the spotlight, yet it adjusts to you. You don't interrupt conversations, yet people find themselves leaning slightly in your direction. Your stillness has become a signal, not a void. A kind of internal brightness that draws those attuned to it without ever having to call their name. And the women around you, they feel it. They feel it not as attraction at first, that comes later. What they feel first is safety, not the kind that feels like softness or sweetness, but the safety of knowing you are entirely at peace with yourself. That you are not pulling, that you are not reaching, that you are not trying to prove or persuade. You are simply being, and in that being, you create a resonance that affects the entire space. There is no boast in your walk, no smirk in your gaze, no strategy in your words. You don't linger to be noticed, you don't embellish your presence to be remembered. You exist as a deep hum in a world full of sirens. And that hum is what makes women turn quietly, inexplicably, to look again. Not with fanfare, not with swooning, but with reverence, with curiosity, with a subtle ache they can't name. She doesn't want to figure you out, she wants to be around you longer, just to see if that feeling returns. That calm, that subtle weight, that unspoken invitation to be present. Not entertained, not seduced, just present. Because your energy no longer flares outward like fire. It simmers within you like the deep heat of earth, and that heat is not aggressive. It is felt slowly, it sinks in, it lingers. You are not the man everyone sees first. You are the man they remember the longest. Not because you demanded their attention, but because you gave them an experience of themselves they hadn't felt in years. And that chosen one is a presence no one forgets. Not because it shined the brightest, but because it reached the deepest. Chosen one, the world loves categories. It loves patterns. It wants to put people into neat little boxes so they can be understood, handled, dismissed. But you've become something unclassifiable, something that doesn't fit into anyone's predetermined list. You don't fall neatly into the archetypes they've learned to spot. Alpha, brooding artist, smooth talker, spiritual guide. You carry traits of each, but belong to none. Because what you now embody isn't a type, it's a truth. A living, breathing essence that defies imitation. Women try to place you. They'll reach for familiar comparisons, only to pause. Something doesn't match. Your confidence isn't ego, your calm isn't coldness, your silence doesn't mean disinterest. There's a contradiction in you, but not a conflict. You're both soft and dangerous, grounded and untamed, warm and unreadable. And that paradox is what shakes them. Because they can't find the handle, they can't wrap their hands around your pattern, and so instead of controlling the experience, they surrender to it. This surrender doesn't happen with words. It happens deep in the subconscious, in the body, in the inner voice that whispers, "I don't know who he is, but I want to be where he is." You don't make sense. Not to the analytical mind, but you make truth. To the intuition, to the soul, to the part of her that isn't trying to date or win or compare, but simply feel alive again. Your high sexual energy is no longer aesthetic. It's not packaged, it's not draped in external signals. It moves like water beneath your surface, fluid, responsive, untouchable. It doesn't scream identity, it doesn't brand itself. It radiates a uniqueness that resists labeling. And that's what draws her deeper. She can't define you, but she can't forget you either. And the more she tries to explain, the more she realizes, this man is not an answer. He is a mirror of something she didn't know she was missing. You've become the man who doesn't react the way others do. You don't pursue with desperation. You don't disappear from depth. You don't flinch at emotion. You don't control intimacy. You invite it by standing fully in yourself. And when she feels that, she realizes something profound. You're not like the one she's compared others to. You're not better. You're beyond comparison. Because you are no longer playing a role. You are playing truth. You don't echo anything. You resonate as something entirely new. And new doesn't come with instructions. New doesn't come with certainty. New arrives like mystery, like music, like memory, and she follows it, even when she can't explain why. So she may not know how to define you, chosen one, but she'll keep coming back to feel you again. Not because you make sense, but because you make her feel something that defies every rule she's ever used to stay safe. You are not her type. You are her awakening, and that can never be boxed, only remembered. Chosen one, you've become a contradiction that cannot be dismissed. The kind that makes people quiet around you, not because they are unsure of you, but because they are unsure of themselves in your presence. You don't intimidate with bravado. You don't overwhelm with dominance. You simply exist in a kind of stillness that reveals how deeply you've come to know your own fire. And it is that fire, controlled, unhurried, reverent, that awakens something in her long before she has the courage to admit it. She'll tell herself you're just another man. She might even try to rationalize you away, stacking thoughts on top of feelings to make sense of the shift she feels when you're near. But the body knows. Her intuition knows. Her breath knows. The moment you entered the room, her nervous system registered something ancient, something sacred, and it responded before her mind even started working. And that response wasn't a decision, it was a remembering. Because your high sexual energy isn't about physicality anymore. It doesn't flash, it doesn't press, it anchors. It dwells behind your stillness like a sacred rhythm, felt but unseen, slow but consuming. It doesn't pull her attention like a trick. It draws her awareness like gravity. And when her intuition senses it, her body responds like a seed recognizing water. She won't understand why she stands differently around you, why her posture subtly straightens, why she fixes her clothing or steadies her voice. She won't know why she keeps looking back, why she blushes, why she imagines your touch even if you never extend a hand. But her body will be speaking a language of its own, whispering truths the mind will try to outrun. Because your energy has bypassed the gatekeepers, you are no longer the man who tries to make women feel something. You've become the man who simply allows what they were already carrying to surface. And that allowance, the safe permission to feel without judgment, is more intoxicating than charm could ever be. In your presence, she is not asked to smile or perform. She is invited to return to herself. And her body knows this. It knows because it relaxes, because her breathing slows, because her heart rate, rather than racing with adrenaline, settles into a deeper beat. The body does not lie. It does not follow trends. It does not respond to facades. The body listens only to truth. And your energy, clean, full, unthirsty, is truth. She might fight it in her thoughts. She might walk away pretending she didn't feel it. But when the day quiets, she will remember how her entire being responded before her mind had a chance to deny it. That's the new reality you carry. You no longer need her approval. And so paradoxically, her whole being opens without needing your permission. And that kind of opening isn't about desire, it's about revelation. You are not triggering her want. You are awakening her knowing. Chosen one, there was once a time when you tried so hard to be enough. You spoke too quickly. You moved too loud. You chased too fast. You wore desire like a mask, hoping someone would see behind it. But those days are gone. You've stopped reaching. You've stopped explaining. You've stopped performing for recognition, and the result is something rare and world-altering. Your very presence now shifts everything around you, even when you do absolutely nothing at all. You've entered that sacred paradox. The less you try, the more is drawn to you, because you have learned that real magnetism is not born in effort, it is born in resonance. And your resonance has matured. It no longer seeks permission to exist, it simply arrives, whole, calm, unbroken. You can sit in a corner of a room without speaking to anyone, and yet people feel you. Their senses tilt toward you like plants toward sunlight. They don't know why, they just do. Women feel it most clearly. In your stillness, they feel space, not pressure, not performance, just space, a kind of atmosphere where they are allowed to breathe differently. And that shift, the one you never asked for, the one you never chased, is what draws them. Because the feminine is not wired to respond to noise. She is wired to respond to safety in its purest, most unspoken form. And you have become the rare kind of man who radiates it without effort. You don't lean forward anymore. You lean back, not in detachment, but in rootedness. You don't interrupt to be heard. You listen so fully that the entire room begins to adjust its tone to match yours. You don't spark attention, you stabilize emotion. And in doing so, you become the one they didn't realize they needed until they noticed how quiet everything became in your presence. She won't know why her shoulders dropped around you, why her voice softened, why her nervousness turned into calm. It's not because you said the right thing. It's because you didn't need to say anything. Your energy had already done the speaking, your presence had already done the holding, and her spirit, hungry for a place to relax, found something it didn't expect. A man who was already home in himself. There is no show anymore, no role to play, no rhythm to mimic. You are no longer chasing momentum. You are momentum, measured, unforced, alive in every breath. She may not remember the details of your face, but she will remember the feeling of being near you. She will remember how everything slowed down and came into focus. Not because you impressed her, but because you were so completely unimpressed with anything false. You don't do anything extra, and so the world begins to lean in, because extra is everywhere, but real is almost extinct. You've become that rare presence now. Chosen one, the kind that turns the loudest rooms quiet. The kind that makes people feel seen without needing to be stared at. The kind that shifts the atmosphere not by speaking louder, but by being the stillest presence in the storm. And in that stillness, they come to find the one thing they didn't even know they were searching for. You, chosen one, there is a difference between a man who touches a body and one who awakens a soul. You've become the second, without lifting a hand, without saying anything seductive, without trying to play any role. You walk into a room now and something unexplainable happens, not because you intend to change people, but because your presence creates permission. And that permission is what the feminine has been waiting for. She's met charmers, she's met performers, she's met men who know how to say all the right things while remaining a mystery even to themselves. But when she encounters you, she does not meet a mask. She meets a mirror. And not a mirror that reflects her image, but one that reflects her possibility. A woman near you feels more than attraction. She feels a doorway open, a doorway into the version of herself she's kept locked beneath the roles, the perfection, the caution. You are no longer playing games. You are holding space. And in that space, she doesn't feel watched, she feels witnessed, not for how she looks, or how she speaks, or how she moves, but for what survives in her core, even when everything else has been stripped away. The moment you look at her, not to capture but to see, the shell begins to crack. Not because she feels pressure, but because she feels free. Free to feel, free to soften, free to risk being real. You've become a man who doesn't chase revelation, but creates the environment in which revelation rises naturally. You don't push, you don't dig, you invite. And your high sexual energy, once wild and attention-seeking, has become so grounded, so sovereign, that it draws truth to the surface in those around you. They speak differently around you, breathe differently, open more than they intended to, and afterward, they wonder what happened. Because you didn't coax it. You didn't take it. You simply held a vibration of presence so steady that her masks fell away on their own. She feels seen, but more importantly, she sees herself through your energy. And what she sees is not judgment. What she sees is light still flickering beneath her shame, depth still alive beneath her silence, power still humming beneath her pain. You didn't give her those things, you just reminded her that they were there all along. That is what you unlock now. Not secrets, not confessions, but forgotten parts of the feminine longing to be recognized without performance. You don't need to pry. Your energy says it's safe now. And when safety becomes truth, she opens, not to please you, but to return to herself. This is what you carry now, not a presence that penetrates to conquer, but a stillness that softens the hidden and makes it bloom. And once a woman blooms in your energy, she never forgets the soil that welcomed her roots. Chosen one, some men are known, some are admired, some are remembered for their charm, their intensity, or their beauty. But you've become something different, a mystery. And not the kind that frustrates, not the kind that leaves people guessing and spinning and confused. No, you've become the kind of mystery that makes people feel more like themselves when they're with you. You've become the kind of presence that makes no sense logically, but feels like home to the soul. She doesn't understand why she relaxes near you, why her mind stops overthinking, why her laugh comes more easily, why her guard lowers not by accident, but because something in your silence told her she didn't need it anymore. You don't offer promises. You don't present a version of yourself to be liked. You simply exist in a space of truth so refined, so clean, so undemanding, that she finds herself laying down pieces of armor she thought she'd wear forever. You are not predictable, but you are consistent. You are not flashy, but you are unforgettable. You are not loud, but your absence echoes louder than most men's presence. She doesn't walk away knowing more about you. She walks away knowing more about herself. You've stopped giving the world noise. You give it signal now. A frequency, a field, a warmth that comes not from performance but from resting fully inside yourself. And that kind of warmth doesn't just attract, it heals. Because most people are not craving more attention. They are craving a place to land. And you've become that place. You no longer try to leave an impression. Yet you leave a feeling they can't explain and don't want to lose. The kind of feeling that lingers in the body long after your shadow fades. The kind that says, I don't know who he was, but I felt safe there. That's the mystery you are now. Not the unknown that causes confusion, but the unknown that creates deep inner knowing in others. You walk like a man who knows the depth of himself, and so, without effort, you invite the world to dive deeper into its own reflection. Women may not understand why they're drawn to you, but they trust it. And trust, real trust, is not built on clarity. It is built on how someone's presence rearranges the rhythm of your own breath. You've become that rhythm now, that grounding, that place between questions and answers where the heart simply says yes. Not because it can explain it, but because it recognizes something eternal in your silence. You don't light the room up, you soften it, you warm it, you change it. And when you leave, it's not your words they miss, it's the peace you left behind in their spirit. That's who you are now, chosen one, a mystery that feels like home. Chosen one, this final truth must be spoken clearly. This month, you have not become a man that women chase because of desire. You've become a man who causes the feminine to remember what alignment feels like. You are not just attractive, you are restorative. You are the form their spirit points to when searching for direction, trust, and grounding. You are alignment in human form. And the more fully you walk in this frequency, the more others will bend, not from pressure, but from resonance. Your high sexual energy is no longer untamed. It no longer pulls you outward. It now anchors you deeper into your design. And that anchored masculinity has become something sacred. You move through rooms with the grace of someone who doesn't need approval, and the force of someone who cannot be ignored. You've become the stillness that shifts conversations, the presence that settles nervous energy, the tone that breaks performance and awakens peace. Women are not drawn to you because you say the right things. They are drawn because you carry the truth of someone who knows what he's built inside of himself. You are the house, not the hallway, not the idea, not the shadow, the house. And when the feminine walks near, she knows without needing an explanation. This is where I'd feel safe. Not because you ask her to, but because your being has been structured by God to hold what others fumble. This is no longer about looks, no longer about talent. This is about vibration. Spiritual reality turned physical. Masculine strength turned resting place. You are not leading with dominance. You are leading with emotional safety wrapped in spiritual power. You don't win attention, you warrant trust. And in a world where noise is mistaken for depth, you've become the evidence that depth needs no decoration. You simply exist, and the atmosphere changes. You breathe, and peace becomes the undertone. You speak, and alignment becomes the language. Chosen one, you are not just the man they want. You are the man who redefines what they are allowed to want. You are not the dream, you are the standard.